Welcome on in, everybody. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. You know what was funny? I was going to do a Jimmy Butler video today. Didn't think that there was actually going to be something newsworthy to put into the fold. But lo and behold, as I was leaving my daughter's cheerleading practice today, avoiding this damn monsoon, I'm watching. I was the practice was winding down, and this little notification pops up. Boop! Philadelphia Inquirer report. Sources: Sixers are prepared to give Jimmy Butler a maximum extension if the Heat star is traded. So this is a story from Keith Pompey, a longtime Sixers reporter. And he says, it's no secret the 76ers are closely monitoring Jimmy Butler's contract situation with the Miami Heat. The Sixers view him as a fallback option if they are unable to sign Paul George in free agency. And according to sources, the Sixers are prepared to give Butler a maximum salary extension if things align and he forces a trade out of Miami. Butler turns 35 on September. He has a $48.8 million extension for next season, a player option $52.2 for 25-26. And the former Sixer wants a 2-year maximum extension for $113 million. There are reports that Miami may look to trade the small forward rather than give him an extension. And then it goes into some of the Pat Riley comments, and we can get into some of those here in just a second. Talks about Jimmy Butler. Is that Jimmy Butler's the main reason for the Heat's truth? Agreed. Duran Ajiku says that he wants to remain with the Heat. That's true. I think he does overall. But like most franchise player, he wants to be paid his worth. Could the Heat risk alienating Butler by optimizing to prioritize future flexibility over giving him an extension this summer? And would the fear of that lead them to trade him this summer if Butler began to make things uncomfortable, regardless of Riley's statement? The Sixers have close to $65 million in cap space this summer. They also have 5 first-round picks and multiple pick swaps available to trade at the start of June's NBA draft. As a result, the Sixers would have enough cap space to absorb the salary and involve a third team that would have something that piques the Heat's interest. Right now, the Sixers are searching for a starter pair with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. So yeah. Let's dive in from here. Okay, there you go. You guys got the brunt of the article here from Keith. And I want to say, like, a lot of Heat fans are, going to attack Keith. First of all, what is Keith saying that's wrong here? All he's telling you is that the Sixers are interested in Jimmy Butler if things don't work out with the Heat. So it's not like saying they're going to poach Jimmy Butler from the Heat. They're not saying that things are bad with the Miami Heat. He's saying some pretty obvious stuff here, which is that if the Heat don't want to pay Jimmy Butler, could that make things rocky with the Miami Heat? I'll tell you the answer with that. Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably they will. Now, the one thing I will say that's just the one thing I tweeted out something snarky about this. The one thing I do find funny about all of this, though, is that this is only contingent upon the idea that Paul George doesn't end up with the Philadelphia 76ers, that he doesn't sign a max extension with the Philadelphia 76ers. And there's got to be nothing more that Jimmy Butler loves than being, once again, the Philadelphia 76ers plan B. Like, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler. It's like, oh, great. So if it doesn't work out with Paul George, then that's the place where I may land. But I don't find this to be a very surprising thing that's going to be out there. There's going to be people circling the Jimmy Butler situation like a bunch of buzzards. If things don't work out and the Heat decide that they don't want to pay Jimmy Butler, which I don't really know. I don't really know where they stand on it, to be honest with you. I don't have intel on it. I don't know. I can tell you based off of Pat Riley's words recently is that they didn't seem too keen on it. They didn't seem like they were in a rush to do it. And that's going to be the interesting thing here which is a little bit leaning into where I was going to go to before even this article came out. And, could we head into a situation where this is just Jimmy Butler's last dance with the Miami Heat? In that if they don't give him his money this summer, is there a shot that we're just heading into a walk year for Jimmy Butler and they lose him for nothing? So when these articles come out, the Heat might be thinking to themselves, all right, we don't want to pay Jimmy. We get a plethora of picks here from Philadelphia, and maybe there is a third player that we like, or maybe there is more ammunition to go get Donovan Mitchell to align with Bam. These are all really interesting questions that the Heat have to ask themselves, and I'm sure already are. Pat, Andy, Spo, I'm sure are already asking themselves about the future of the team, because we have seen a team that has had a really valiant effort. The Jimmy Butler era has been awesome. If you're asking old Tobes, you know what my answer is. I've told you already. I would pay Jimmy Butler. I would give him his money. I love Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler on the Heat. I want him to end his career with the Miami Heat. I don't want him to end his career with the Philadelphia 76ers. You know how heartbreaking I would find it if he went to the Philadelphia 76ers this year and somehow Joel Embiid was able to get past the hump of getting to the NBA Finals finally with Tyrese Maxey and along Jimmy Butler. That would break me into pieces as a fan. I would hate seeing that. So I could see that as an option. New York. I definitely could see New York snooping around. They have a bunch of picks too, and I could see them snooping around the Jimmy Butler thing. Jimmy Butler lives in New York in the offseason from time to time. Jimmy Butler, Tom Thibodeau, the relationship is known. Maybe it's a little bit worn out, but it is known. It is respected. He would fit seemingly with Jalen Brunson just fine. We know his agent loves Tom Thibodeau. He's very fond of Tom Thibodeau. So, yeah, guys, I just think I do think that the Heat fan has to be prepared for a summer of a lot of this, because it's not really known whether Miami is going to blink at Jimmy. I will say I don't think that any of these reports are going to make them more scared. I think that this is just an answer that they have to get to with themselves, and that is, do they want to be in a place where they're going to build around Jimmy anymore? Do they believe they can build around Jimmy anymore? Or do they really think that, one, that, Jimmy Butler is declining and that Jimmy Butler truly is, hitting this wall of his career for a very physical player who is reliant upon getting to the free throw line for production, wasn't as good getting to the cup this year and scoring. And is that a trend, or did Jimmy Butler just have a subpar year? Does he still have the ability to dive? Because 35 is not old. I'm not scared of 35. I'm not scared of 35. I'm not scared of 36. Everybody's really scared of the 37 years, right? And this is the thing, is do you already reward Jimmy Butler for what he's done? In my opinion, yes. But I'm not Pat Riley. And I've said this. I don't think Pat Riley's past echoes that he's going to do that. He didn't do it with Dwayne. He didn't do it with he got tired of Shaquille O'Neal. He was cutthroat with Tim Hardaway. He is, Goran Dragic, was kind of like, hey, it was nice to give Goran Dragic an extra year to opt in. So Goran kind of got like a gift going away, but they did still say, hey, once we saw that decline, see ya, Gogi. We're gonna go get Kyle. We're gonna go get Kyle Lowry. They're cutthroat with this. If they think a guy's decline is coming, they will run away. Anthony Chang, of course, a fantastic reporter for the Miami Herald. He says on Twitter, Jimmy Butler wants a max extension this offseason, preferably from the Miami Heat. But whether it's from the Heat or another team, he wants a max extension. Or Butler can become a free agent by declining his player option next offseason and look for a max contract then. Also true. And that is going to be the interesting thing, is if the Heat were to call Jimmy's bluff and just say, nah, not paying you, but we're going to keep you. Jimmy making a stink. All right. Is he going to make enough of a stink to walk? What's he going to, it's kind of hard to know what Jimmy's card would be to play there, because then ultimately he would need to go play his ass off to go get the contract that he thinks he warrants, right? He can't really dog it. He's not James Harden. I suppose he could go to a lot of tennis tournaments and just come up with personal reasons to miss games or feel ill. But I think the Heat standpoint is kind of, we're already dealing with that. We just want Jimmy Butler to play. Like that's their standpoint. If we want the guy out there, we want him playing basketball, and we want to know that we can rely upon him to play more basketball than he's been able to do in the regular season, for whatever the reasons are. And when he's playing basketball, play like you're one of the best players in the league, not like it's touch and go and this game doesn't really matter. That is I think the the place where the Miami Heat are at with him. So yeah, when I see that the Sixers are prepared to get in on the Jimmy Butler game, that makes all the sense in the world. Great relationship with Joel Embiid. And here's the other thing from Philadelphia's side, right? Philadelphia wants this out there because Daryl Morey, of course, loves his stars, has his two show ponies, but he does have to keep Joel Embiid happy. And if Joel Embiid is going to watch the Celtics get to the finals, and he's going to watch the Pacers get to the conference finals before he did, if Joel Embiid is going to watch the Celtics get back to the NBA finals and the Pacers get to a conference finals before he did, and he's going to watch the Knicks surpass him, yeah, the guy's going to want his front office to have and demand some answers. So what is a great answer to have? Well, Joe, we're going to, if they swing and miss on Paul George, what's the great, we're going to get in the Jimmy game. So, yeah, I think there's part of this that is self-serving to the Sixers in that, yeah, they want to let it be known that, hey, we got options. We got options. It is interesting, though, if the Heat really did get into a trade for Jimmy, yeah, what does that look like? Where do they go from there? Because do the Heat, if they go asset hunting with Jimmy Butler, does that mean that they immediately, does Pat Riley sharpen the harpoons and go and get Spida and use that? Or is the plan right now, hey, Cleveland likes some of our young guys, let's go get Donovan Mitchell. But I think if you're the Heat and you do that and you do get in the game for Spida or whomever, let's just say you get back in the game for Dame, then to me it's also make sure you take care of Jimmy Butler, because you're also make sure you take care of Jimmy Butler, and that when you take care of, just to put all headaches aside, it's a little bit like what the Dolphins are going through with Tua. It's like, do you have to pay him right now? No, but don't you kind of want the headaches to subside as well? Like that's part of this for sure. But it's really not surprising that you're getting this type of stuff. And I think the thing that's going to be interesting about it is there'll be a lot of outside noise coming from camps that aren't the Heat camp and aren't the Jimmy Butler camp, but are leakier ships than the others, just like it was with the report about Jaime and Tyler Hero being of interest to the Cavaliers. The Heat don't want this stuff out there. So interesting. Let's see what else they write here. Says their desire is to sign George. Sixers believe they have a real chance of getting the 9-time All-Star if he opts out. And they do have their eyes on other impact players. That's why they're also looking at free agents like LeBron, OG Anunoby. They believe they can use their draft assets and capital to get a difference maker via trade. That has led Butler to the Chicago Bulls for Zach LaVine and the New Orleans Pelicans to get Brandon Ingram amongst trade interests. George, Butler, and James would have immediate impact. However, the expectation is that James will sign with the Lakers. Yeah, UD was saying that today on ESPN. Time will tell what happens with George, and it's no guarantee that Butler will be made available. In reality, it does not make sense for both players to leave their current situations aside from a payday. Let's see. Pelicans. Whatever happens, the Sixers realize they made a mistake by sending Butler to the Heat via trade in 2019. He has brought a relentlessness that they haven't had since his departure. He has brought a relentlessness that they haven't had since his departure. That word kicked my ass. Yet several dominoes would have to fall into place to get him. So there you go. The Sixers are preparing to swoop in for Jimmy Butler if the Heat aren't willing to pay for Jimmy Butler. Pat Riley, he said, of course, earlier this offseason, this was about a month ago, he said that they're not looking to trade Jimmy Butler.
Pat, if you guys determine over the coming weeks and months that your non-Jimmy and non-Bam assets are not enough to appeal to other teams to get a quality player back, an all-star, someone of that ilk in return, would you then at that point have to at least be open to considering a trade for Jimmy?
No. Not right now. I mean, you're asking the question and you want your answer, and you're not going to damn get it, Barry, okay? Whatever your answer. I appreciate the question.
He doesn't appreciate the question. That we know. He does not appreciate the question on Jimmy Butler. This was when he was asked about the extension, and there was a couple of interesting things when he was asked by Ira and Anthony about it that, they don't have to decide on that yet.
I know you guys have a few months to discuss this and make a final decision, but as of now, do you feel like you guys will offer Jimmy the max extension he's eligible for, and what are the factors that go into that decision?
Well, we don't have to do that for a year. So we have not discussed that internally right now, but we have to look at that, making that kind of commitment, okay? And when do we do it? I mean, we don't have to do it until 25, actually, but we'll see. We haven't made a decision on it, and we really haven't really in earnest discussed it. So we'll just see what happens, Anthony.
This is the interesting thing about the waiting game and why Jimmy Butler would want the contract now, right? Like, it's very simple. Like, you're going into a 35-year season, probably maybe the last at the peak of your powers. Have a well-rested summer, although, he's recovering from an injury as well. But, yeah, of course, because, look, there is a risk to this. What if Jimmy Butler stinks up the joint? What if he plays 40 games this year? What if the Heat completely collapse and they can't get through it? Then why would the Heat want to pay him? So, yeah, this is the last year that Jimmy Butler can really force the hand of the Heat with, come on, man, look what I've done. You guys haven't done. Like, if I'm Jimmy Butler, this is Jimmy Butler's side. All right, not Tobin, this is Jimmy Butler's side. Hey, man, look what I've done. Dragged you to the finals twice. Shot away from getting you there 3 times. What have you guys done? Yeah, you did get my friend Kyle Lowry, which is what I wanted. But you didn't get anything else. No Dame. No other Orcas. Been sitting here waiting. Where are my moves? And, that's a fine argument. But it's only got so much shot. Like, if you come out there again this year and don't play as many games and you don't have success in the playoffs and all that, you're not going to have that argument. Hey, remember what I did 2 years ago? Like, it doesn't sound as cool. This year's the year where you can be like, come on, baby, look at this East. This East stinks. If I was healthy, that was kind of the ire of Pat Riley's point, right? Where Jimmy Butler's saying, I think Jimmy Butler has probably proven himself more right with his comments at F1 about if I would have played, Boston or New York would have been home. I think we could all look at this playoffs and say he's more right than he was wrong. Knowing how the East has played out, Jimmy Butler is more right about his comments than he is wrong. Or there's no way Jimmy Butler has less belief in his statements than when he said them based on how the East has played out. But yeah, this is the last year where you really can harp on sentiment, what you've done, what you've brought the franchise to. And I get that argument. It's a fine argument. I know people say don't pay for past performance. That's bullshit, in my opinion, dude. Like, all this stuff is off past performance. Nobody really gets paid off of what you think someone's going to be. Maybe every once in a while. And the only time that ever happens is where a guy exceeds what he gets paid or is you're like, you believe the bar? Like, with Jalen Brunson. That's the only time you ever hear about it. Like, can you believe what we're paying Jalen Brunson compared to what some of the other stars are getting paid? You never hear that when it comes to, this guy's getting paid exactly what he should get paid for what he's produced us. No, of course, you're going to lean on sentiment and what you've done. That was Dwayne's whole thing, right? Yeah, what do you mean? I've never been the highest paid player in the Heat, or you actually are going to give this to some dude who was playing in Lebanon before you give it to you're gonna not think about giving him the money, but you're gonna balk on giving me the money. It was the whole point. But this is the year you got to do it if you're Jimmy Butler's side. Because otherwise, then you got to go prove it. And maybe he could prove it and have an amazing year. He could also say, peace out to the Heat, and maybe he gets a monster 2-year deal somewhere else just for spite. But I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know. The Heat, Pat Riley didn't seem too keen on it. He didn't seem too keen on it based on him being so pissed about availability with Jimmy Butler. And how much is that going to change? I think that the Heat got to look and see, like, I think the Heat probably, this is where I think the Heat have to go. The Heat have to go into this summer, and they have to figure out the guys that we'd be willing to trade. What does that actually get us to build around Jimmy and Bam, right? And if the answer is not good enough around Jimmy and Bam to do anything, then the Miami Heat, if it's an option, should look into, okay, what does Jimmy Butler fetch us? Because now it's time to start not rebuilding, but retooling the roster to build around Bam Adebayo. Because if you don't think that championship window is really there anymore, and you don't feel like building around Jimmy and Bam, that just throw out the pieces, Jaime, Nico, Tyler, whatever picks they unlock to trade. If that doesn't garner you, if you don't think those guys and whatever that trade garners you will be enough to build around Jimmy and Bam, then yeah, I get it. Then the Heat are probably in a position where they got to think to themselves, all right, we got to go in a new direction. But if they're in a spot where they can get a bona fide all-star next to those guys, and even, I would hope, keep one of the young guys there to keep it a bit of a deeper team, then yeah, I'm all for giving Jimmy Butler his money and riding this thing out. I do think Jimmy Butler, I do think that these things, when you have a guy, like, look, man, say what you will, but the Miami Heat have done a lot of, we've seen a lot of people doing anniversaries on there's this date of Jimmy Butler being awesome. This is 3 years ago since Jimmy Butler was that amazing. Here's 4 years ago since Jimmy Butler was amazing. Stuff means something to sports fans, And I think it would be a tough look for the Heat to have that man, after everything and all the memories he's given you and all the positive things. Like, I get that the Heat don't feel all the time like he's maybe as arms around the organization as he is, but that guy gets the Heat the national exposure. He does. He is ballooned up into this. He's ballooned up to a bigger star than he ever has been anywhere else. He's in the damn Bad Boys trailer. He's in all kinds of commercials. He's hobnobbing with starlets, all that stuff, right? But there has to be, so I do think there has to be some sentiment of like, hey, we've had a lot of great memories built together. Just let's not make this too complicated. One more damn year under contract. It's not a 4-year extension into his 40s. It's one more year, max contract. Does it really help? Do you bite the bullet that much? Again, my opinion is pay Jimmy Butler. But I think the Heat probably right now are thinking to themselves, we're not jumping in 2 feet into the water with that yet. And that they're assessing what do they have to build around Jimmy and Bam. And then they'll go from there. But yeah, I think the Heat fan needs to be prepared for a lot of vulture stories like this. Because until they're ready to answer the question about paying Jimmy Butler's max, as Anthony Chang has pointed out, then there's a chance that Jimmy Butler's going to be pissed and that there's going to be a lot of drama around the Miami Heat this summer.